In a world where so many modern games are AAA titles with huge budgets and massive 3D environments to work through, it is always refreshing to get modern games that are presented in a retro style. What's going on, everybody? I'm Jay. Welcome to Square Pegs. Glad you're here. Thanks for stopping by. Love retro games. That's where I cut my teeth. That's where I started, and I love seeing modern interpretations of retro tropes and retro classics. Today, we're looking at 10 retro-styled modern games that I think are going to scratch the itch for any retro gamers out there. And hey, why not? Let's start things off with some superheroes, right?
Knuckle Buster!
Featuring gameplay similar to things like the classic X-Men arcade, Final Fight, Streets of Rage, or anything like that, even Scott Pilgrim vs. the World, Marvel Cosmic Invasion was a modern release of a classic beat-em-up franchise that is absolutely wonderful. Developed by Tribute and .emu, the guys that did TMNT Shredder's Revenge, this features a ton of classic Marvel characters in a fantastical cosmic setting where you are going to be going to space and battling Annihilus's forces as the Annihilation Wave starts to move through the Marvel video game universe. All your favorite characters here, well, not all of them, a lot of your favorite characters are here. Spider-Man, Wolverine, Rocket Raccoon, She-Hulk, Thing, Cyclops. It's a huge array of characters that are just super fun to play. Each of them is a little bit different in the way they operate as well. So someone like Rocket Raccoon is a little bit faster and a little bit more agile than the Thing, but each one has their own inherent flaws and each one has their own inherent values, and they're all spectacularly fun. Love this game. Love everything that .emu and Tribute do together. It's a beautiful amalgamation of wonderful developers creating just amazing retro-style modern games. Just putting that kind of classic experience out there while having modern gameplay aesthetics involved. It's an A-plus picture for me. Outrun was one of my favorite games growing up, and I think that there's a lot of really amazing modern games that kind of riff on Outrun really well, but one of the best is 80s Overdrive, which is just a 100% love letter to Outrun, including down to the point where you're actually able to scroll through the radio stations to pick what music you want to listen to. Soundtrack is pure 1980s goodness, all synthwave, all the time, all fantastic. The look of the game is really interesting because there's a lot of parallax scrolling in the background, which I think looks really neat because you have multiple different viewpoints kind of moving left and right at different paces as you go around corners and things like that. The foreground as you're racing is very much akin to Outrun with kind of like that forced staged gradient of the different grass textures and things like that to make it look like there's different colors of grass. The gameplay is solid, it's fast, and it's fun. It was a little rough around the edges when it first launched, but there's actually been some updates released since that I actually think make this game incredibly fun. Really solid title, available in multiple places. It's a really wonderful racing game. If you're a fan of Outrun, this is one that I think you should check out. It's really, really solid. There's zero mystery as to what game inspired Bloodstained Curse of the Moon. It's Castlevania, 100%. Specifically Castlevania 3, with some caveats to that. First and foremost, this is a gothic adventure game where you are basically going through, it's a Castlevania experience. You understand what you're getting. Classic Castlevania, not Symphony of the Night. So understand that this is a more linear exploration-based game than something like Symphony of the Night or anything like that. The gameplay is solid and familiar and feels just like any other Castlevania game that you've ever played, just with a lot of improvements and quality of life changes that make the game significantly more enjoyable and more accessible than its retro counterparts. One of the things I really dig about this game is the fact that you're able to hot swap your characters on the fly as you play. So you're not just stuck playing Simon for an entire level. If you needed to play somebody else, you can actually swap back and forth between the characters you control. And each one plays a little bit differently, has different reaches, different attacks, things like that. And I think that's a really solid introduction and really solid kind of building block for what this franchise has become. There's a couple of sequels to this game. Curse of the Moon 2 is very similar to this one, and then there's Ritual of the Night, I think it's called, which is a significantly more modern take on things where you actually have 3D polygonal graphics and things like that. But both are excellent. Both are really fun. This is just a wonderful experience, and if you love Castlevania like I do, you need to play it. with gameplay reminiscent to classic Metroidvanias, Plungeez is a really interesting game that kind of came out of nowhere for me. I really like this one. It's a very clever puzzle platformer where you need to think beyond just going left to right. You really need to think laterally and kind of figure out exactly how you need to proceed through, because there's going to be different aspects of each room that you go into that you're going to need to solve to either find the hidden objects, find the hidden doors, or just proceed through the sewers. It's a really clever game. I dig this one a lot. There's some fun mechanics involved here where you're getting things that are just everyday objects that you're going to use hidden around the sewers on, skeletons, because that's totally normal. Things like diving helmets, things like plungers, where you're going to use them to scale walls or be able to swim. It's a really, really excellent game and something that I've had a lot of fun with. And I think it's something that a lot of people would really enjoy. I can see where the love letter to just classic 16-bit adventure comes from with this game, and they execute it incredibly well. Absolutely remarkable title. Borrowing from both Wizardry and Final Fantasy, Dungeon Antiqua is an incredible entry into the RPG genre that utilizes some incredible gameplay design to make a really wonderful, wonderful game. How does it borrow from Wizardry? Well, that one's really interesting because Wizardry, if you remember, is a first-person dungeon crawler game, and this is clearly a top-down dungeon crawler, so you've got the dungeon crawler thing there, but it's not one-to-one exactly what's happening, because it does use a lot of the tropes introduced in Wizardry, things like one-way walls, trapped chests, class alignments, armor class, things like that. Things that were borrowed from Dungeons & Dragons and put into video game form is present here as well. But combat is done kind of like Final Fantasy, where it's traditional turn-based, party-based combat with 5 different characters against a horde of enemies. Different classes that you can build your characters around, each one playing a little bit differently, each one with different abilities, different weapons and armors that they can wield or use, different spells that they can cast. Gameplay is a solid experience from top to bottom. The music sounds great, and it just looks wonderful. It's a classic pixel art RPG, and I love it. Really solid title. Definitely worth checking out. There's absolutely no question what Sonic Mania was inspired by. It's Sonic the Hedgehog, and this, I think, might be the single greatest modern retro game ever made, because while this definitely feels like something that stepped straight out of the 1990s, this was a one-man act that turned a passion project for Sonic the Hedgehog into something that Sega took note of and eventually published. I firmly believe this is the greatest 16-bit side-scrolling Sonic the Hedgehog game ever made. I think it's better than anything that was released on the Genesis. You can see the love that the developer has for the character of Sonic and the entire Sonic universe built into it, because there's nothing here that is bad. Everything is handled with love and care. Everything is done remarkably well. Like, from the graphics down to the music to the animation sequences and Sonic's general locomotion, it's all stuff that is handcrafted and just put perfectly into a loving tribute to Sonic the Hedgehog. It just so happens to be published by Sega, which I think if this had starred another character and wasn't starring Sonic, it would still be talked about as glowingly as it currently is, being an official Sonic game. It's something where it's just a beautiful experience from top to bottom, and legitimately one of the greatest Sonic games, if not the greatest Sonic game ever made. Proving that not all licensed games are terrible, the Mummy Demastered is a remarkable game based around the 2017 Tom Cruise Mummy movie, which was at the time going to be Universal's relaunch of the Universal Monsters franchise, which never panned out, unfortunately, because I think that could have been a really interesting way to go about things. This game is spectacular. It plays a little bit like a Turrican game while sticking it firmly into Metroidvania style, so like a Super Castlevania 4, Symphony of the Night, Metroid, Super Metroid, something like that. It's just really solidly designed. The gameplay is challenging and fun and looks incredible, like one of the most beautiful pixel art games I've ever seen. The soundtrack is wonderful, and if it's something where you love that Mummy movie or you just like the Universal monsters, this is tailor-made for you because it's a really interesting game that takes a license and doesn't adhere 100% to what it's based on. It does its own thing and makes something really remarkable. This, of course, was developed by WayForward, one of my absolute favorite video game developers, and I love when they kind of step out of their comfort zone and it's not just a Shantae game or something like that where they make something brand new. Even if it is based on an existing property, they show what a skilled development house they are, and this kind of proves it in my eyes. A little bit Rastin, a little bit Legendary Axe. Beholgar 2 is a Conan-inspired hack-and-slash Metroidvania that is as beautiful as it is brutal. This game is 100% unforgiving and will kill you quickly, and regularly, and frequently. And you're going to keep coming back for more because it's an unbelievably addictive game that makes you want to keep moving forward and keep bettering yourself as you play. The pixel art in the game is absolutely stunning. The animations on the main characters and all of the different enemies in the game are wonderful. The level layouts are really creative, the music is good, and it is a gore fest. This is an absolutely bloody mess of a game where killing an enemy or dying yourself will just spray blood everywhere, and it feels like a Conan movie come to life in video game form. It's a legitimately challenging and fun game that does not pull its punches. But when you're able to solve something that has been bothering you that you haven't been able to get through, it's one of the most rewarding feelings in the world. Absolutely fantastic game and super fun. Thank you to them for providing a review code for this one. They didn't ask me to say any of this. This is one that I've actually sat on for a while. Because of its difficulty, I didn't know if I was going to recommend, but this is a perfect video for it. If you're looking for something challenging that harkens back to games like Rygar, like Legendary Axe, this is one you need to check out.
Ready, player one.
Sometimes you just need something that's easy to pick up and play, easy to understand, and simple to enjoy, and that is where Galacticon comes in. With gameplay that's reminiscent of things like Joust as well as Jetpack, it's a really fun game that utilizes solid physics to give you a really exciting challenge and interesting way to play a title. There's a lot of kind of like alien blasting and things like that where you're going to be shooting lasers all over the place, which is really fun. But as you play, you're going to be incurring gravity, and you're going to need to feather the throttle to be able to boost up a little bit. It's a really interesting mix of arcade tropes that turns into a really wonderful game overall. It could have been something where they were relying too heavily on either one, but they've actually threaded a really delicate balance here that makes a really exciting game really fun to play. I enjoy this one tremendously. It's something that there's a lot of really wonderful single-screen arcade games out there right now that are being developed, and I think this is a top-tier entry into that world. While it might not be as one-to-one single-screen arcade as something like Donut Dodo, it's still something that, to me, is a really beautiful experience, and just kind of, like I said, it threads that needle perfectly of combining video game tropes from an arcade to make a perfect picture. Set in my home state of Michigan, Prison City takes place in Detroit and is a loving throwback to classic games like Shatterhand, Mega Man, and Power Blade, three of my absolute favorite NES games. This is a truly wonderful game, something that, to me, is just the epitome of what a modern retro game should be. It takes all of those tropes that were inspired by those classic NES games, cleans them up considerably, and gives you an unbelievably fun experience while still providing that NES-level challenge. It's a beautiful game that sounds and plays remarkably well. If you're looking for something that's a little bit Escape from New York, this is going to be right up your alley. The gameplay is going to be familiar if you have played any of those classic NES games, and it's not something where I think you're going to breeze through it because there is that solid challenge here. It's something that offers a lot of opportunity to really screw with you and really play. And with the ability to kind of move your way through and choose what levels you're going to go to. It adds a little bit of replayability there as well, where you need to figure out what is going to be the best path for you to move through the game. Absolutely fantastic side-scrolling shooter, and just something that is a really wonderful experience from top to bottom. Nothing that I have played on this list makes me feel quite like I did back on the NES like Prison City does. 10 modern retro-style games that I think are absolutely spectacular. So many amazing games releasing literally every day that it's really hard to keep up with this, but I think these 10 are pretty awesome. Let me know in the comments down below, what are your favorite modern retro-style games? Love to hear from you. If you enjoyed today's video, give it a big thumbs up. Consider subscribing if you're new here and sticking around. I'd love to have you here. And hey, I'm Jay. Thanks for stopping by. Remember to play more games, stay square, and take care. I'll talk to you soon.